Well. It's been brought to my attention that somebody has designed, built and patented a supercharged rotary exhaust valve two-stroke. And that's odd, I thought, because the technical drawing hangs here. The prototype is here. And if you think this is too far from their design, well, here are the rotary exhaust drum valves. Sneaky little sneaks they are. This was designed and built in 2021, and the patent, well, it's from 2020, December 2024. I think the first, it was applied, if I read it correctly, in 2022. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they haven't seen this. Maybe they haven't noticed what's going on here. It's plausible. But still, I think they're sneaky little sneaks. They're missing some bits though. Bits that would, that I think would make things better. It's the reed valves. It's the transfer ports being as high as the exhaust ports, because that gives us variable inlet timing. For some reason they state variable inlet timing in their paper, and there's no provision for variable inlet timing there. There's just normal transfers, actually really normal transfers at normal transfer height, and then but there's no transfer ducts. There's external ducts to a supercharger. Looks like a roots blower, actually might be a twin screw charger. Well, actually I think it's a twin screw, because the inlet is in like here. If they stole my design, I'll wear that as a badge of honor, really. And I had no plans for any patents or anything, I don't care. But I think it's funny. I've established that these two concrete things, and I think this, and that's pretty much spot on. It's actually sitting a little bit low, so it should be sitting more like that. I'm trying to figure out a way for mounting this in the frame, the most clever way. It could sit like that. I've come to the conclusion that putting this in the Speedway frame, the frame is really unsuitable for it, really. And also, with how I was planning to do it, we would have just had one gear and a clutch. And really, I would want a gearbox. There's another option, and I think it's doable. There's lots of room. Well, I think there's enough room. Let me show you. This is the Aprilia RS50 frame you've seen us playing with earlier, and this has the AM6 engine, but there's no crankshaft in here. There's a jackshaft. We might have to do away with the rear shock though, but actually we could have this mounted upside down like this. Well, kinda. So that's an option. We could have it like this, which looks completely ridiculous. Gravity feed would be a problem. We would need a super low pressure pump. A maybe better option could be to flip it like this. Have it, actually we could have it sitting like that, and well, yeah, that actually works. Of course, we'd have to have some kind of a shield here to not get our junk sucked into the supercharger. But anyways, I think that's and then we could still have a tank here. It's no problem at all. That's plenty of room. One thing we realized while running this kind of setup earlier is that the primary ratio of the primary to that jackshaft before the real primary it plays a huge role here. I was running 1-to-1 with the while testing the PIP engine, and we saw like 7 horsepower, and then we switched it to 2-to-1, 2 crank revolutions per jackshaft revolution, and I think we saw like almost 14 horsepower. It's twice the horsepower from just switching out the primary ratio, and we used a different gear and everything was, so the wheel speed, dyno speed, everything was equivalent. Still twice the horsepower. So a jackshaft like this is not a good option, it seems, or at least you need a good reduction ratio there to remove the friction from that jackshaft this early on in the. I've actually been thinking a lot about that, how a gearbox design for super low torque engines like the normal two-stroke engines. The clue is to have really high reduction at first, and then as torque starts getting multiplied, then you can have smaller reductions. But as torque is so low, we'll talk about that later. I know what you're thinking, oh my god, he's gone crazy again. He's back to his old ways of complete chaos, and it's not the case. I'm just allowing myself a little bit of chaos while waiting for parts. I've got bearings and seals for the engine. I'm waiting for the cylinders. They should arrive this week. And these are the bearings for the drive side. The bearings for the ignition side should be, well, the rotary valve side should be here tomorrow, I think. And they're kind of, well, the cylinders, but that's kind of the last part of the puzzle. What is like it's always been is this video being sponsored by NordVPN. NordVPN creates an encrypted tunnel for your data to travel in, so nobody can spy on your data and potentially steal it. This is getting more and more important now as AI is on the rise, and it's becoming so easy to impersonate people. And if you have enough data on somebody, it's easy to create an AI that can impersonate them so good that, well, your mother will believe it's you. Another super great thing about NordVPN is how you can pretend to be from wherever you want. This means you can pretend to be from somewhere else if you want to access stuff that's not available at home, or you can pretend that you're home when you're traveling and access stuff that's only available at home. It's super fast, and there's servers all around the world. Say if you want to play a game with all your friends in America and you're located in Europe, you can actually use NordVPN and get better results versus just connecting to the server at that other continent. NordVPN will be super useful for me now, as I'm going to travel back and forth to the United States a couple of times to keep my stuff safe, and also for me to access stuff back home. Head to nordvpn.com/twostrokestuffing for a great deal, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you, NordVPN. I like this a lot. And I don't think it'll be too hard either. It's pretty much, we need, we're going to weld a plate here, which we can use the 4 M8 like cylinder studs and mount it there. And then we can tie into the supercharger here to these two mounts here. And probably some bracing, but maybe something up here, but galvanized, that's why the major cleanup. It's hard to find a good way of clamping this. I've badly taped a piece of wood. I should have cleaned this better. To that beam I clamped onto there. And this is to straighten up the engine in the frame. And there's no way for me to get any clamps in here, so I'm going to use a ratchet strap. It doesn't have to clamp very hard. It only has to hold it in place so that I can get a couple of tacks in on that plate I made. And that'll be our starting point. It's butted up against the piece of wood and that angle thing I put in there. Okay, so, and nothing is hitting anywhere, which means I think we should get this tacked in place. Forgot to press record. I drilled a hole. There's too much meat here. Let me just grind that off. Like that. Meat tutorial. I'm gonna might just keep the 2 points in front here, and we're gonna tie into the other side of the blower and also brace this so that there's 3 points of contact so it can't swivel. But now it's positioned, hopefully in a good position. I think so. Tank will have to be a little bit high to allow, like it has to sit above the carb here to allow for a gravity feed to work. But sorry for the missing footage of fabricating this. My son started playing basketball, and the basketball hoop is on the garage wall here, and the noise was just not something you want to have in a video. So now the engine is mounted here, and down at the original engine mount, and there's some bracing here, and I've just tacked everything, and I didn't realize I didn't turn the gas on, and I didn't realize until after three tacks. There was some argon left in the line, I think, but things started going too bad even for me, and then I realized. And this tack is with gas. Something really cool I was absolutely sure wouldn't work. Ta-da! And there's plenty of room behind the carb. And with the intake for the fuel here, there's actually enough space for a tank. A shallow, small tank though, but still sitting higher than this inside of here, like here. This solves the junk getting sucked into here issue, and it also solves the flying belts in my face issue. Just perfect, just perfect. I've been going through my belts and pulleys pile, and unfortunately there's nothing of the correct length in any type, really. So then a really stupid idea. Chain. A big fat chain, nonetheless. I don't think it will be too happy with the high RPM, but well, it can't hurt to try. The last bearings arrived. These are the rotary valve side roller bearings. This means all we're missing now for assembling the PIP engine is the cylinders, which should be done this week. So the terrible idea, 428 primary drive. There's not much room here, so this will have to sit kind of far out on the axle. So might not be the best option, but let's just try it. Got to turn the camera on, but it's for the better, because I'm not sure what's happening here. Lots of porosity. I think there's some I can see now why the welding turned out even worse than it usually does. And it's this, the galvanizing. So I thought I had ground off all the galvanizing, but I hadn't, especially in this area and in some spots here, and that's where all the porosity and the weirdness, like look at this, and around here. So note to self, grind off the galvanizing properly, or start with something that's not galvanized at all. Oh God, and my back is killing me from standing like that. After turning 40, something magical about 40, I think, where I'm just starting to fall to pieces. Well, I think it happened earlier to Mr. Cthulhu, Michael, the sword guy. I remember him complaining about his back all the time. What happened to him? I gotta check, see what's going on there. Really cool videos. The thing with these is they pull onto the taper when you tighten them, so you gotta leave a little bit of extra space, and I think that's about what we need. We need to leave even more room. So if you haven't used taper lock bushings before, they're the best. So nice. Been able to clamp onto shafts in this way without having to make keyways and stuff. Even though there is a keyway in the taper bush, so we can use a key, but well, there has to be lots of torque for that to be necessary. That's rubbing on. There's actually like a finger of room here, and it's rubbing on the frame. So I think what I want to do is move this half a finger in and of course the same thing up here. And that'll be better for the crank, and it'll clear the frame and it'll clear the engine. That means we'll have to pull the engine out again though. Okay, I think that's it for tonight. Tomorrow morning